Hey everybody, welcome back to ComputerCraft tutorials for Minecraft 1.6. I'm your host, FunshineX, and we are back today in the ComputerCraft room here to talk about peripherals. The next 3 episodes, I believe, are going to deal with peripherals. We're going to start the simplest, which would be the disk drive. Oh, that wasn't bad. Good. Blooper! I didn't know I could reach from that far. Anyway, the disk drive right there. Then we're going to move on to the printer. Then we'll move on to probably monitors and then modems, or maybe not in that order, but we'll do those 4 peripherals. Once we're done with that, we'll talk about turtles, and then we'll move into some more advanced topics. So if you guys have followed my series before, you probably are set through turtles, and you can keep watching if you want to get updates on maybe what's new in the mod. But yeah, we'll be probably 4 or 5 more episodes before we get to some advanced stuff and some really cool stuff. Okay, so let's talk about the disk drive. The disk drive has a space for a floppy disk, and I've already shown you how to make everything, so I'm not going to do that again. I'm just going to spawn one in here. And you can either open it, shift-click it in, or you can shift-click it right from your inventory, and the green light will turn on. And yep, so that floppy is now in there, and if you look at the list of the files here, you've now got this disk folder. So ROM is the one that's on the actual computer, and disk is on the floppy disk. You see I've renamed my old startup file for the house control just to do this tutorial. I didn't want it to get in the way. So let's go ahead and go onto the disk, and you can see it's empty right now. And basically what we can do is we can copy files back and forth through the disk. We can use it as to store our secret files and put them in a chest somewhere, or somewhere where if you want to keep an extra copy of your files. It's good if you've got like maybe 10 computers and you want them all to run the same thing, which comes in very handy with turtles to copy your programs back and forth using the floppy disk. That's what they're used for. Really quick before we get to that though, I'll show you they do have another use. And that's the music disc. So if you shift click one of those in there, and let's just go into the Lua application because it's easier. You've got a couple programs here. The first one would be disk.play audio, and then you got to give it the side, obviously. And it's playing our music for us. While it's playing, we can say, well, anytime, you can actually test if it's an audio disc or not. So let's look there. And it should tell us true, yep. And we can also do the opposite check, see if it's a data disc. And this one should be false. Okay? So that's how you tell if you've got a music disc or a data disc in there. And we can also get the audio title. This should, if I spell it right, tells us it's the Strad C418 music file. And then the other option we have is to say disk.stop audio. So that's your options with kind of the jukebox functionality of the disk drive. I'm sure you could make a really cool program that used like, if you had Buildcraft pipes or logistics pipes or something, you could pipe in these music discs in and out. Or you could maybe even in vanilla use a complicated redstone and hopper system to put different discs in here and then read what the title is and display it on the monitor. I don't know. The possibilities are endless with ComputerCraft, guys. So okay, let's move on to the actual meat of this guy. So let's put our disk drive back in there. And one thing that's really cool about disks is if you put a startup file on a disk. So let me put it. This is on the actual disk, and let's say print, and we're going to call this one, let's just say floppy. And then let's also go back to the main root folder now, and let's do a startup. So we've got 2 separate startups, and this is going to be computer. Okay, so you guys tell me right now which one's going to run. You guess it? Let's see. I'm going to hit reboot on the computer. the floppy. So the floppy startup program overwrites the actual computer, which is very useful. It's the same thing your computer does if you have a floppy disk. Most of you probably don't. None of mine do anymore. But it overrides the boot sequence, so the floppy has priority. And what is really cool, I know a lot of guys commented earlier on this, is if you do have a computer that's got a startup program that you can't terminate, you can't get rid of, you want to get rid of it, you could just put a disk drive on the side and put your own startup disk in here and just tell it to do something else. So that's probably an easy way to hack a computer that's set up to like run password and that kind of thing. So let's do this. One thing we might want to do is have an automatic boot disk. So whenever we put a disk drive down and a floppy disk in there, it will copy over our startup file to the computer and then always have it there. That's one of the main uses I use disk drives for, especially with turtles, because then I can have a row of turtles. I just plop down a disk drive in front of it, put the disk in, reboot the computer, the turtle, and he goes, right? So let's go back to the floppy and let's edit the startup program again. And what I'm going to do is I want to say copy, and then we have to, this is a API of the file system, so fs.copy, and we have to provide the location of the file that we want to do. So this is going to be on the disk, and let's just call it boot up. Okay, and we haven't created that yet, but it'll be there in a minute on the disk drive. And what do we want to call it on the hard drive? Well, we want to call it startup. Oops, I need quotes around that. So if we have this boot up file on our disk drive, as soon as it runs this startup file, it's going to copy that one over to the computer and call that startup. Okay, complicated, but it's fine. And then we'll do shell.run startup. And that'll run the startup program on the computer, not the disk. All right? Makes sense? So let's save and exit this one, and let's edit our boot up file. Is that what we called it? And let's say we're going to do this again. Just print out a message. So this is our floppy. And if we reboot, let's see what happens. It's telling us the file already exists. Okay, so what happened is we ran the floppy disk startup, and it tried to copy that boot up file and name it startup. We can't do that because the file already exists. Okay, so let's just delete startup. Now let's try it again. There we go, floppy. So now the program is copied on here. We can list our things, and we see we have a startup program here. And that was copied from our floppy. But I don't want to manually delete that every time, right? So let's go back into the disk program. Oops. And edit startup here. And right before we copy it, then we just say fs.delete. And we want to delete the startup file. Oops. Save, exit, reboot. This time we shouldn't get any error, right? Floppy. So it doesn't matter how many times we restart it, it's going to delete it for us and then recopy it. So yeah, now we're free to make this change to this disk, and then whenever time we put the disk back in here, reboot, it'll get our latest changes, which is cool. Let's talk about labels. Remember how we labeled a computer? We can also label our disk drive. So if we type label here, you can see these other three options that I pointed out earlier, and it didn't tell you what they're for. So you can do label, get, and drive just means the side. So, right. And it's got no disk label on it right now. So we better give it a label, or otherwise if we accidentally delete it or do something, then it's gone forever. So, label, set, right. And you don't do any quotes on here. You just, so this is our boot disk. And not only does that give it a label, so now your programs are stored on your actual physical computer outside of Minecraft and not just in memory. You've now got a label on here so you can tell it apart from other floppy disks. Do remember though, you can color these. Of course I'm in creative, so let's get that right out here. I think I had a crafting bench already there. But see, we can color it. It'll retain the label. And that's another way. Yeah, I did have a crafting bench. It's another way to know, just differentiate your floppy disks if you have a bunch. Okay, is there anything else I wanted to talk about with disk drives? No, I think that's it. So again, useful for startup files, just a backup or copying files between computers, and especially when you get into turtles, you're going to probably use disk drives a lot. So that's going to be it for floppies. We still got time left, so let's move on to printers. Okay, guys, let's talk about printers. The printer peripheral has got 3 slots. This is a relatively new block and doesn't have a ton of use, applicable use, but it's kind of a cool, RP type block, and there are some uses for it. The left slot here takes inks. So if you want to just print in black and white, then you get the regular black ink sac, but you can do all of the other dyes as well. So you can do any colors there. So let's go ahead and go in cyan. And then the top one, you can hold a whole stack of dye there. The top slot is for paper, and you can hold a stack in each of those, so you can do 6 stacks. The bottom one is going to be your output once you print a page. Each page is going to take 1 dye to print it. And I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so, and it's got a cool little interface here that shows you there's paper in the top. And let's actually talk about the functions that you can call on the printer. If I go in the Lua interface and I just type printer.getPaperLevel, that's one of the functions of the printer. And we're going to get an error here. It's going to say attempt to index a nil value. This is probably one of those common errors you're going to get in ComputerCraft. Usually it just means you have a typo. But in this case, it means that we're not using this peripheral properly, and we need to talk about the wrap function. Peripherals, if you want to know the technical details behind each peripheral in the mod, has its own set of functions that it knows how to do. So the one we just looked at, the disk drive, knows how to play an audio file or to run the startup file, that kind of thing. But the computer itself doesn't know, so it has to go talk to the peripheral and say, what functions do you know how to do? And then it says, okay, well, the user's trying to call this function. Do you have that? And if so, go ahead and run it. The disk drive is a special block that automatically tells the computer block that it's there and it knows what to do. But the printer and the modem and the monitor and all their third-party add-ons don't. The computer is completely oblivious. So you have to tell it what functions are available or on what peripheral to even call the function. So let me get this up on the wiki real quick and we can talk about it. And I'm on the peripheral API wiki, and there's 5 functions here, and one is present, and that's to say, is there even a peripheral on the side I'm interested in? And then you can also say the get type and what size. You can say what type of peripheral it is. Get the methods, and that will say, okay, well, this peripheral has these methods available. And then you have the call function, and that one is would be the normal way you could say, okay, printer, I want you to go get the paper level and tell me what it is. And the peripheral.call function, you need to provide the side, you need to provide the method name and any parameters that it needs as well, and then it'll call it. And that's all grand, it works, but it sucks. It's hard to type all that. It's not clean code. And so there's a nice method called wrap, which handles all that for you and allows you to wrap a peripheral in a nice little object that you can call. So if we wanted to do that line above where I just did that, we need to do something else first. And we're going to call peripheral.wrap. And we want to wrap this to the left side. And we need to store this somewhere, whatever it wraps. So I'm going to call this printer. Okay, so now a printer variable is assigned to whatever peripheral's on the left side. Pretty cool. Once we do that, we can say printer and see it's not null anymore, it's an actual table. Don't worry about that. But now the printer has access to all the methods of the actual printer. So now we can call printer.getPaperLevel, and oops, it should work fine. 128, 2 stacks. Okay, so that's peripheral.wrap. You're going to use it a lot if you work with monitors and modems and printers. so get used to it. What else do we want to do? Okay, let's actually talk about the methods of the printer itself. We've got the get paper level, we just talked about that. We also have the get ink level, which tells you the ink level, obviously. The other one is get page size, and this is important because you might not know how much room is on a page. I don't know what the point of this function is, actually, because all pages are the same size in ComputerCraft. And it's gonna, I expected this error, don't give me crap about that, but it says page not started, and basically we need to tell it to start actually printing a page. Think of like a spooler on your actual printer. So we're going to say printer.newPage, and let's see what it does. It says true. It just means there was a page there, it was able to create it. You see now this page is gone. We took one here and it's got this little icon here. That means it's printing the page. It's also taken one of our dies. And the page here is just in the printer, printing, doing its grand old stuff. Okay, so now if we get the page size, it actually tells us, well, there's 25 rows, 21 columns, or vice versa, that we can actually print to. So first we want to set the title. Sound like a good thing to do? Yeah, it sounds like a good thing to do. So printer.set page title. And this is going to call my first page. Cool. Awesome. I don't know. We'll see what that did later. And then we need to write something on the page, right? So let's printer.write. Really easy. This is our first page in the epic novel, whatever. All right, and I printed out wrote that, and you can see there's still nothing going on. It's still just all sitting here, and it's actually not going to actually output it until we go printer.endPage. Okay, and we could put all that into a function or an actual program. I just like, it's easier to use the Lua interface here because I can just type it in and run it immediately. So now our bottom tray's got a page, and we can see here it's called my first page, and we hold it up here, and it says this is our first page in. And that's one thing you got to know. That whole get page size is very useful to get the number of rows and columns, because the write function does not wrap. So if you've got a long string like I did, this is our first page, blah blah blah, you've got to know, okay, well, how long is the string, and if it's too long I need to wrap it manually. So just something to be aware of when you're writing pages out with long strings. You need to check their length, and if they need to be wrapped, then do that. The computer's not going to do that for you. Okay, let's do one more. So let's get this up, open, and do printer.startPage, or new page again, and let's give it a title of my second page. Okay. And then let's do printer.write. And remember, we got to about, I don't know, probably right here is probably good. And we can write another line. And printer.endPage. Okay, so we've got two pages now. Let's look and see if this one formatted the way we expected it to. Oh, it didn't. Oh no. Alright, so it didn't format correctly. It just overwrote our first line. And that's not what we wanted at all. And it works just like a computer terminal or a monitor. And that if you don't set the line that you want to write to, it's just going to keep overwriting the first line. And the reason I leave these failures in is so you guys can see and learn what happens if you don't do it right, and then you'll remember, okay, I need to set the cursor position. So let's go back and do it one more time, and do a new page. And let's just, this is going to be our second page again. And we can write our first line, because that's easy. It's always going to be on the first thing. But then in between, let's do printer.set cursor position. And The X is going to be 1, and the Y is going to be 2. So now we're on our second row. And now we can write our second page right there, and then printer.end. Okay, now let's look at it. There we go. Now it's formatted correctly. We wrapped it ourselves. We've got a new line exactly how we want it to work. All right, now what are we going to do with all these pages? Well, if you look at the recipes, which obviously can't, but remember I'm going to cheat. Remember we looked in here that we could make these printed page groupings with just a piece of string. So let's get a string and go back and out here in our crafting grid. String can go anywhere, so let's just put it in the first slot, and everything else is going to be bound together in the order that you put it. So I'm going to put my first page here and my second page. You have to have at least 2 pages to bind it together, and you'll get this printed pages, and it's going to inherit the title of whatever the first page is in. So if I do it this way, it's going to be called my second page. Okay, so let's do just those 2 in here and print them out. So this is 2 pages long, this is 1 page long. Let's get another piece of string. And you can keep binding them this way forever. So if you had a book that was like 20 pages long, you could just put the first 8 in here, bind it together, and then bind the next 7 with the first, and that kind of thing. Okay, so now we have this stack of 3 pages, and if we just click on it, we'll see that we have 3 pages, but we can't really see what the other ones are. We just see the first page. The only way to be able to read them all is to actually craft them into a book, which I showed you guys the other time, but I actually made a mistake on. You're going to need another piece of string and the leather. So let's do that. Put leather and string anywhere, and then a bunch of pages, and we'll actually get our bound book. So this should be a 3-page book, and we can read it. Oh, and I guess you get arrow keys to cycle through it. I thought it had a mouse option, but I guess it doesn't. Oh, scroll mouse. Okay, I'm learning something new right now, guys. But yeah, so if you want to scroll through the pages, and that probably works actually, now that I think about it on these. It does, okay, so you can scroll through just this stack of pages. And yeah, so we can read our book. I don't think there's a way to make an actual title page, so you're going to have to like kind of format it to make it look like a title page if you want it to really look like a cool book. And then you can have a table of contents or something like that. So yeah, that'd be really cool to make an actual novel in here. I'm not going to do it. Make a program that like printed out Iliad or something. Yeah, you guys can go to town with that. Anything else I'm missing on the ComputerCraft peripheral or printer? I don't think so. Again, you can get the cursor position, set the cursor position, write string, start a new page, end a page. Let's talk about this. This is something that didn't work in the past, and I'd actually like to give it a try. Let's do printer.newPage. If we can. Printer.write, and I want to write test. Okay? So I've got a single page here. It's going to have test in cyan. Okay? Now, what I want to do is move this over and put this back in with some magenta. And I'm going to do printer.newPage. Does that work? Okay, it took our page, and it took some magenta. And on this one, let's do printer.write, and let's just do TES. Sure. Or we could do this, printer.setCursor. And let's move it over to the 4 slot. And print test out again. And then this time we're not going to end the page. Oh yeah, we're going to need to end the page because we want to do a new die. So let's do printer.endPage. So that won't actually use a different colored die until you end the page. And then we can go back in here. New page, Set the cursor position to be 8.1. Write test, and then end it. Okay, what are we going to have now? Well, we should have a page with test, test, test in 3 different colors. Hey, it works! So you can now write in multiple colors on a single page, which is definitely something you can't do in vanilla. And yeah, that's awesome. Guys, that's going to do it. It got a little bit long. Sorry about that. This is FunshineX for ComputerCraft tutorials. Keep leaving comments. I've enjoyed what you guys have added on and requests that you've made. I will get them. I just want to make sure we cover all the basics first in case someone brand new is on my channel looking at these mods. I had a lot of issues with people going to the old tutorials from a year ago and wondering why they don't work. And it's just because they're old. So I want to get them updated. We now have got disk drives and printers, and we'll go for modems or monitors next time. I will see you guys then. Bye.